Part 65. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 646. The voice of His Majesty the Emperor is very light and light, as if whispering in Nalan Mo's ear. This fluttering sound can strike directly at the bottom of his heart, like another, himself speaking. Although he closed his eyes, his mind was thoughtful, and he followed the words of the Emperor to weave a picture of male and female love. The body is uncomfortable. This is a kind of discomfort he has never experienced before. Not really uncomfortable, but a kind of tangle and stimulation that seems to be stepping on the edge of joy. His finger moved several times under the quilt, and even moved the place, but in the end, he did not touch that place. He wants to hold back. He told himself that he must hold back. This is not where he can be wanton. He should be careful not to indulge his desires. Be careful, be careful. There was a soft whisper in the ear, like a fine mist. The word of caution should have been serious, but it should have been hardened. But the soft voice in my ear is gentle and lingering. The word Shenzi made him hear countless emotions. It's like being wrapped around the tip of the tongue. His eyes closed tighter subconsciously. This is hallucination. This is hallucination. He has to keep his own heart. He has to keep to himself. Be careful, be careful, be careful. This sighed, as if the lover's disappointment murmured, but also as a lover's eerie pleading. His body was frozen. The smell of xingxiang filled the nose and mouth, making his brain seem to be some hunchun. He froze and did not dare to move. Soft lips touched his stiff, cold lips. This tenderness is like countless dreams. He wanted to open his eyes but didn't dare. This is a dream, and he doesn't want to wake up in it. Be careful, be careful. He listened to the soft voice, never thinking that his words would be so nice. Hearing a kind, just listening to the call, he felt that his body was soft, and his heart was like being trapped in the warm water, sinking unconsciously. The soft tongue pried open his lips and broke into his mouth. The sweet liquid was flowing in his mouth, making his thirsty body even more unbearable. He just wanted to draw these sweet liquids. He was breathing slowly, his stiff hands holding the woman's face unknowingly, raising his head slightly, urgency, from passive to active, drawing juice from her mouth. He felt as if he had found a point of relief, but it didn't seem to be enough, not enough, and he wanted more. Want a lot. The woman's hands spit fire on him, turning him who was on the verge of collapse into a ball of irrational fire. He suddenly opened his eyes and stared at the woman close at hand. Such an illusion, such a dream, is too unreal. Even this woman is unreal. He stared at her delicate red lips, listening to her softly calling, "Be careful, be careful, be careful." Such a nice name. He watched her lips open and close her lips, listening to her voice like a fascinating voice. When he opened his eyes, those black and white clear eyes gradually closed one layer after another. He leaned closer, learning from her, kissing her lips and lingering. It's so fragrant. Her fingers had unbuttoned his lining, and he could not hold him by his obscene pants. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 647. Nalan Mo finally couldn't bear it, and rolled over and pressed the woman under her. He didn't know how to do it, only instinctively, trying to cling to her, trying to pinch her body, and absorbing her moisture. I just want to follow women and follow the flow. Everything in the dream is like a snowy moon, beautiful and unrealistic. The woman's body was soft and juicy, and he was intoxicated, forgetting where he came from, and he didn't know where to go. Like an ignorant young man who won the treasure at first, with the blood and energy of a cavity, he explored the woman again and again. Yanj got dressed and sat kneeling beside Nalan Mo, staring at the man's face with the orange light shining through the night light. Nine Tails, Isn't the medicine too much? This guy is unconscious. Zhu Wei immediately jumped to his feet and said, "It's impossible. This medicine dose is the ordinary people's medicine dose. I have used it many times, and there is no such thing as coma. Chicken, Wood, aren't you too intemperate to drain people all at once?" Words of song. She didn't memorize this black pot. She kept her voice cold and asked Zhu Wei again, "You said that your dose is the normal amount of ordinary people? Then if it is not ordinary people? Nalan Mo is sick all the year round and should be weaker than normal people. Right?" Ninetailed decisively silent. "I still do not understand where the song is." Zhu Wei, this guy secretly played a careful eye again. She kept another account for this guy in her heart, and her voice was still indifferent. "Did you overdo it?" Zhu Wei hastily said, No, at most, I can no longer be humane for a short period of time, just raise my body." After a pause, he also said, "However, this kind of weak man is not easy to let a woman get pregnant, and the possibility of having a boy is even less. Miss Sister and Sister, I think you can really consider another way." Yan's fingers touched Nalan Mo's bloodless lips, and he snorted coldly, "If there is something wrong, even if the fox meat is not good, I will roast you for the dog." Zhu Wei was excited, and immediately said, "Miss Sister, don't worry, I will use my fox to guarantee the ticket. He will definitely be fine. I guarantee that after 2 days of rest, I will jump around and continue to take care of you. Chicken, Wood, I support you to bake him." Since the nine-tailed guy came, they can no longer appreciate the various exciting battles of wood and men, and the whole life seems to be half the fun. Chickens are unhappy. Yan Ji ignored these two guys. She rubbed Nalan Mo's lips, and then barely rubbed a little blood. How to do? The person fainted and could not summon the royal doctor overnight. Fearing that this guy was weak and incapable, he prepared more medicine, but didn't expect that this guy was like a wolf, so he wouldn't squeeze out and be reconciled until he passed out before finally letting her go. At the beginning of the book, people were so tossed by a half-minded person like Nalan Mo, and Yan Ji himself was really upset. Both legs fluttered when getting out of bed. The thought of having to clear the battlefield for a while made her painful, but the pit she dug herself had to climb up crying. After clearing the battlefield, Yanj helped Nalan Mo to put on his lining again, consciously leaving no trace, and then returned to his bed. When Nalan Mo woke up, he was holding the bright yellow tent in the whole room, and he still didn't know what it was like. With a slight movement, he felt that his head was as heavy as a burden, and his head was dizzy and uncomfortable. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 648. The palace man who was waiting aside called softly, "Master, are you awake?" This is the palace man around the emperor. Although Nalan Mo's head is not bright, his instinctual response is still there, and he slightly nods, "Gong Qin." As soon as the sound came out, he realized that his throat was a little hoarse. "Not only is my throat uncomfortable, but my body is sore." He was always sick in bed, knowing what he looked like, and wanted to be infected with the cold again. Although his brain was drowsy, he was a little bit empty, and he always had the illusion that he had forgotten something. When he stared, he realized that he was in the room of the emperor's Kinzen Hall. Why is he here? Father Qin was less than 15 years old. Today, the emperor was nominated by the emperor to wait for the prime minister. He thought this was a very honorable task, so he immediately stepped forward with a smile and went to help Nalan Mo sit up and said, "His Majesty has gone. It was early in the morning, and I specifically instructed the slave not to wake up the adult and let the adult sleep more." As soon as Nalan Mo was about to speak, the father-in-law Qin who helped him called out in surprise, "Master Xiang's hands are hot." The words fell again and carefully touched Nalan Mo's forehead. Master Xiang is also very hot, it must be a fever. Master Xiang waits a moment, the slave will call the royal doctor to come. No need. Nalan Mo resisted the drowsiness of the brain and said in a deep voice, no need to bother the doctor, the Prime Minister's office has the medicine I always have, and it will be good to go back and eat a little. If it is convenient for Qin Gong Gong, can I ask out of the house? Oh, okay, Your Majesty has instructed people to prepare breakfast for the adults, is it not necessary for the adults? Nalan Mo shook his head, and now he wants to return home immediately. Except for the emperor in the palace, ordinary people cannot sit on the shoulders, but the emperor does not take the ordinary value of the prime minister, and has been instructed long ago that if Nalan Mo wants to leave the palace, he will prepare a soft car for him. Nalan Mo, who was sitting in the sedan chair, wobbled softly, although he was not bumpy, but he was lethargic. He knew that he was seriously ill, and his body could not stand the wind and cold. Presumably he had fallen asleep on the couch last night and was cold. After thinking about it, he thought of it, and he remembered it. He talked with the emperor last night about the reduction of people in the palace. Outside the palace gate, the carriage of the Prime Minister's palace was waiting outside. The carriage on Nalan Mo supported by Qin Gong personally. When he helped Nalan Mo lower the curtain, Qin Gong Gong took a book wrapped in bright yellow and embroidered with Hang Long Jinlong of Jinlong, and handed it to Nalan Mo. Master Xiang, this is the book that Your Majesty sent you. Your Majesty said that this book is a set of 12. I will borrow one for you. Your Majesty hopes that you will keep it safe and return it to Your Majesty in the future. Nalan Mo's head was dull, he thanked him, took the book, and thought about what the emperor meant. He talked with the emperor yesterday about clean government. About this book is about this aspect. Presumably, this was the accident that the emperor came by accident. Otherwise, the emperor would not be so opened up suddenly. Nalan Mo, half lying in the carriage, was buzzing in his head. It was extremely uncomfortable. This time, the cold infection could not be prevented. I thought that my good body was like this again. I do know when I can raise it. Although he was used to it, but so many things had not been dealt with, Nalan Mo felt extremely frustrated. In order to divert attention, he resisted the pain in his brain and opened the book sent by the emperor. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 649. Hangyunjin was the best cloth in court. The emperor used this Hangyunjin to wrap the book, which is enough to show the importance he attached to this book. Want to come, the emperor wanted to start the family, but also nailed it. On the book cover are some big characters flying in the air, return to the garden. Nalan Mo wondered for a moment, these words were vigorous and vicissitudes. Just looking at the words, there was a feeling of wise old man rushing to his face. He has most impressions of talented people in the capital. He has never seen such a handwriting. It seems that the capital is really crouching. With that admiration in mind, he opened the page. This opening is the spring of men and women. 2 pages per page. One is a brilliant narrative, which tells about the various fragrant and colorful things hidden behind the city with the beauty of prostitution, and the other side is the fragrant and colorful paintings. Different from the ugly picture books that Nalan Mo has seen in the past, in this picture book, both men and women are as beautiful as fairies, and the woman's body is painted beautifully everywhere, and the joy between men and women is clearly so red / nude and straightforward, but at first glance, the painting gave him a beautiful illusion. From the moment he opened the painting page, Nalan Mo was motionless. Countless pictures exploded in his buzzing mind. After a blank space, countless fragmented pictures rushed towards us, sometimes clear and sometimes blurred, and even a woman's voice of carefulness softly. Nalan Mo's face was pale, although his eyes were still staring at the book in his hand, but his eyes were empty, only immersed in his chaotic pictures. What happened? Illusion. No, Chunmeng couldn't be so real. He still remembered the woman's facial features, charming and beautiful, the beauty of beauty, and the woman's body as soft as boneless, slim waist, and there. Just thinking about it now, there is an illusion that the body bones are crisp. He leaned his head on the cushion and, for a long time, reached out to rub his temples. Why would he have such a dream? This is hard to achieve, is the so-called Huangliang dream. I wonder if there was anything unusual last night. Did the emperor notice it? Even though Nalanmo was a mature boy, at the moment, I remembered that I had a dream full of scent and fragrance while living in the same room with the emperor, and I still felt embarrassed. His eyes fell on the pages of the book again. With such a dream, although he did not like this kind of thing, he could not help looking at it. No wonder the emperor wanted to cherish this book. In fact, the book is rich in rhetoric and exquisite paintings. Just looking at those words and the paintings makes people think. It is a pity that this person who paints and paints does this kind of out-of-flight painting. Wrap the book with Hang Yunjin again, but Nalanmo's mind is still full of those pictures just watched. This first part is about the scene of the recluse Shiro and his beloved woman rejoicing while sleeping on the couch in the summer afternoon. Although the gorgeous rhetoric is silvery, it is not indecent, but people look forward to it. Nalanmo, with his eyes closed, he remembered the dream last night. He was in the dream with the woman, and was on the couch with all kinds of joy. Putting his fingers on the tip of his nose, he sniffed lightly. The tip of his fingers seemed to still have the body fluid of the woman. The pleasant smell of body fluid made him have the illusion that this was not a dream. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Peng. Chapter 650. Nalanmo thought with a little sigh, I don't know if there is such a woman in his dream in this world. Nalanmo's disease lasted more than half a month. As an emperor, Yanj didn't need any concubine to nourish and satisfy her. In the morning, she handled government affairs, and in the afternoon she took the guard around the capital. Every day watching the lively in the restaurant, or listening to the play in the theater, is to watch the ants move under the tree, and she can spend the afternoon outside. Although the guards were initially surprised by how often the emperor ran out every day, they gradually became used to it. These guards, of course, don't know, Yanj. Is this a handsome man on the street? After supplementing Nalanmo for so many times, I later heard from father-in-law Chin that Nalanmo was infected with cold, and when he got in the car, his legs were shaking, his face was pale and there was no trace of blood. Yanj was so guilty that she almost gave her husband to sleep when she fell asleep. If there was something wrong with her, the emperor would have to act for her, so terrible. She sent the imperial doctor to the prime minister's office to help the prime minister twice. I also saw the two doctors alone and asked vaguely about how Nalanmo's body can be on a daughter. The two imperial doctors didn't know what the words meant. One shook his head in embarrassment and said that a body like Nalanmo's is best to rest and not suitable for hard work. This is the meaning of not suitable for intercourse. Another one just entered the Thai hospital a short time ago, and a little simple reply, the adult husband and wife have 2 losses in blood and blood, it is very strange, obviously they are not indulgent. Perhaps this is because the adult husband is always sick in bed. This will be the case in the future. Difficult. The word blood loss made Yan Ji feel guilty again. She decided to let Nalanmo go and find her next home again. But I was accustomed to Nalanmo's prosperous beauty, and looking at those guys in Chaotang, none of them were eye-catching. The capital is so big, she walked around for more than a month and did not meet a guy who agrees with her. It's really gloomy. I don't know if the last time I spent with Nalanmo on the night, countless extracts have taken effect. Ugh. It seems impossible to take an Alaman's body. That day, I was watching a fan of the beauty group handmade by a street vendor in front of a stall on the street. The crowd in front suddenly boiled, and Yan Ji looked up. People crowded along the street like scared horses. An out-of-control carriage also rushed from the corner of the street. The guards around Yanj immediately guarded Yanj without any trace. The carriage was unbiased, just rushing from the direction of the song. Two of the guards drew their swords and rushed towards the horse. It was also at this time that a person suddenly appeared in the carriage and leapt on the horse's back, hugging the horse's neck and trying to turn the horse in the other direction. When he saw that the guard was about to chop the horse's head, he called quickly, "This is a good red-maned horse in Xining, don't kill, don't kill." No matter how good a horse is, his life is not as important. The guards did not hesitate to drop the sword. One of them cut off the horse's head, and the other two slammed into the horse's body that was still rushing forward, and the carriage ran into the other side. Although the rider was covered with blood, not only was he not afraid, but he jumped up and grabbed the guard to make a theory. Yan Ji shouted at him, "Su Fang, come here." As soon as these two words of Su Fang came out, people around him sighed incredibly. It turned out to be this jerk. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 651. Su Fang, the name of the mixed devil, is also famous in Beijing. Su Fang, who was going to fight with the guard for a while, looked up at the emperor, thinking he was dazzled, and stretched out his hands to rub his eyes. The blood on his face was so rubbed by him. Amazed. A few steps trot before Yan Ji, Su Fang immediately became a grinning dog-leg like, "Oh, oh." Yanj interrupted him, "Just call me the eldest son. Su Fang is as good, Grand Prince." Yanj raised his folding fan and knocked him over the head. "If you don't have a son at home, what is going on in this street?" Su Fang. Since he said that he wanted to have a son before His Majesty that day, almost every time His Majesty saw him in private, he was asking him, has his son been born? He didn't dare to see His Majesty in private now. He always cared about His Majesty who gave birth to his son. Although the heart is old and embarrassing, Su Fang still has to respectfully smile, which is so easy. My mother said that I must marry a daughter-in-law when I have a son. I do NT, and I will come out today. Blind date, Yanj see that he even shaved his chin mustache. I want to come to be very satisfied with the person I want to meet this time, who's a girl. Please tell me once you're good, and I'll give you a marriage. Su Fang listened and waved his hands in a hurry. Don't mention it, Your Majesty, the girl is very petulant, and took this Xining red-bred horse as a cart horse to show off. This silly girl, I want to beat her. Red-maned horses are suitable for battlefields, and they have good physical strength and run fast. Although the stables on Xining are trying to breed such horses, the fertility rate of the horses is not high, and the survival rate in childhood is also low. Not high, so red-maned horses are rare. When Yan Ji saw his face distressed, he knew that the blind date was blown away. While talking, two women came out of the carriage. It was a girl who supported her own lady, who had red eyes and walked while she walked. It was estimated that she hadn't eased from the incident just now. The words were swept away, what a silly girl, the girl Lu Fufu, the skin of a goose egg with a slick face, the eyebrows, and the beautiful. Alas, if her body is a man, there is no need to worry about this kind of secret rubbing to find someone to match. If you marry a few beautiful women to the harem, you can have 10 or 8 children. It's a pity not to bring it. The lady stood not far away, staring at Su Fang with her lips biting. Su Fang did not see the pretense, and said to Yanj, "Master, how much fun is there in this capital? You rarely come once, and I will take you around." Yan Ji nodded, but was curious about what fun and fresh places this guy could take her to. She handed her handkerchief to Su Fang. you wipe your face first, it's all blood. If you go out like this, you don't know how many people are scared. Su Fang took the pats and wiped them randomly, and then put the pats under his nose and smelled it. What kind of gift is this, big lad? This one smells so good. The words fell back and smiled at the words and hippies. My son, I look like this in private, don't you get angry. Yan Ji glanced at him expressionlessly. Where to go? Su Fang took his song to Furong Street. He has been under the control of several elders in his family since childhood, and the famous Qinglu Street in Beijing has never been to. Now he is relying on the name of the Emperor Yanj, and plans to visit the several flower buildings he remembers. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 652. When this guy came to Furong Street, he said to the song mysteriously, Master, this Furong Street in Beijing is famous throughout our great song. Those envoys from other countries came to our great song. And when we'll come to see this Furong Street in a day, and there is a saying that the capital city does not see Furong, but it is Furong Street. Yan Ji squinted at him. Are you familiar with this place? Su Fang immediately patted his chest. I'm familiar with the bricks and tiles here. Song, oh. Su Fart, Bien Pidian led the way, and entered the largest Huaman building with the word song. He proudly packed all the famous flower girls in Huaman building. Yan Ji and he listened to the whole afternoon in this flower-filled building. I thought that there could be any special service. As a result, these flower girls were all acting and not selling, and the flower girls Su Fang didn't order. This guy shook his head and listened to Kr and listened with interest. From time to time, mysteriously explained to Yanj what the meaning of the song similar to Shiba Emo was. This man is really a little fart. He has a thief and no courage. When he enters this kind of place, he just listens to the silver song. After listening to the small song all afternoon, the words of song are like taking a nap. But when it came to check out, something happened again. The flowers girls sing songs are expensive, and the private box is the best. For one afternoon, it is 12 silver. Yanj is rich, but she doesn't know what it costs, so she doesn't plan to pay. Su Fang stared at Yanj, almost staring at a hole in Yanj's face. Large, big boy, are you going out without silver? Yanj didn't move, and the guard behind her naturally wouldn't come up to pay for it. Yanj was expressionless and asked him, aren't you going to treat guests? Why, you didn't bring silver. Su Fang's money was confiscated by his own mother, and his pockets were shy. If it were okay to ask Yan Ji to drink a bowl of cricket on the roadside, he could not afford it. I don't know when the eldest son arrives. He didn't bring so much silver with him for a while. Eldest son, should you lend me some money and I will return you someday? Words, no, money and women, never loan. Su Fang stared at the song. He knew for the first time that the emperor was so stingy. Well, if that big boy isn't in a hurry, can we wait here for a while and I'll pick up some money at home? If you do have the money, come out and pretend to be wide. Yanj gave him a phrase, go and go back, and turned to the private room upstairs. Su Fang had wanted to carry Yanj, a grandfather of Buddha and his mother, to get some money. As a result, his mother-in-law was fiercer than his stepmother. He felt that he was lying, and because of the failure of his blind date today, he grabbed the broom and swept him out of the general's house. The emperor was still pressing in Huamanlu. Su Fang walked down the street, and for the first time gave birth to a kind of lofty ambition that would only be useful to me. It wasn't anyone else who came to Huamanlu to check out. This person Su is not used to smelling the savory butter powder in Huamanlu, and has been sitting in a sedan on the street. After waiting for Su Fang to lead Yanj out, he got out of the sedan chair and shouted the same song as Su Fang, grandfather. Yan Ji squinted at Na Lan Mo, and then looked at Su Fang. This guy just asked him to go home and get the silver. How did he get Naran Mo? After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 653. Nalan Mo, however, did not squint, looked down slightly, and asked the words, "Master, do you want to sit in a sedan?" Yanj shook his head, "Your bones are not yet cool, you can sit." With the emperor's presence, how could Nalan Mo dare to sit on the sedan alone and let the emperor walk? He didn't respond, but silently followed Yanj. This Wen Yuwu also followed behind. 1 and 2 were pretty little white faces. After walking a few steps so swiftly, the words found that the eyes of passers-by looked at a few people, and also pointed out, vaguely listened to these individuals discussing which good-looking question. Even her own guard had to keep a distance from her, and Yan Ji turned his head out of Furong Lane and said to the two of them, "If you have something, you can go and get busy. I'll go around." She has grown enough to be stubborn, and now there are two of them again. This way has swept across the market, not to mention how many passers-by will be watching. Yan Ji thinks that scene is creepy. Seeing that the two did not answer, Yan arranged, "Su Fang, you send Shen Ji home, he has a bad bone and can't blow the wind, you help him get on the car." Su Fang didn't want to do it. His hands helped his little daughter-in-law to get on the sedan chair, not to help a hypocrite like Nalan Mo. So I immediately protested, "Master, you should walk away because his body is not good. People always lie down and think wildly. If they think too much, they will get sick. Look at me and jump around. This is how much you walk the benefits of." Nalan's dark eyes glanced at the back of Yanj. He didn't respond. In his mind, the sound of Yanj's carefulness was echoed. The emperor's voice was clear and clearly could not be compared with that voice, but he didn't know why, but they even overlapped the two people's voices together. Seeing that Nalan Mo didn't answer, Su Fang snorted softly, and walked to the side of Yanj a few steps. "Master, I've been with you for a whole day, and I'm hungry. Otherwise, let's find one somewhere to eat." In the most famous #1 building in Beijing, all kinds of food are very famous. Why don't you go and try? The guy was thick-skinned, and Yan Ji glanced at him. "Is there money?" "I don't have money." This is straightforward enough. Su Fang looked at Nalan Mo. The eldest son said he wanted to go to the Champion building and taste the delicious food there. Words of song. Damn, her name is like this in front of her. Isn't she looking for Nalan Mo to Furong Tower, also in her name? Yan Ji's face is very dark. She was thinking about finding some work for Su Fang. This guy has unlimited energy and obviously needs to be honed. Nalan Mo still did not speak, so the group was led by Su Fang, turned around and went to the Champion building. Today, there was the owner of gold. Su Fang called the best box, and ordered the famous dishes of the #1 yuan, 2 for the guards around Yanj. Every dish comes up, and the shop's second child hasn't reported the dish's name yet. Su Fang has put the dish in front of Yanj, eloquently talking about the origin of the dish's name and artistic conception. Of course, I still don't forget to say that the dish is from where to start pinching, and where is the best food. The mixed world devil in Beijing is a bit veritable. Su Fang often puts dishes in front of Yanj, and Yanj will clamp a chopstick for Nalan Mo. "Be careful, you try it." Nalan Mo silently clamped a chopstick in her mouth, chewed it a few times, and then looked up to Yanj and said, "Okay. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 654. It was probably a guilty conscience, and he closed his eyes and immediately regained his eyesight, making Yanj's heart somewhat inexplicable. Su Fang was immediately dissatisfied. What is acceptable? The dishes of the Champion building, but they are all good. Nalan Mo looked up and looked at Su Fang. the champion building is now your grandmother's business? Mrs. Su has a good business, which I really admire. Su Fang. Words of song. Nalan Mo turned his head again and said to Yanj, my grandson, although Beijing is at the foot of the emperor, he may also enter into the marketplace with short eyes. If the grandson is okay, it is better to return to the palace earlier. Su Fang, what is a long-term marketplace? Nalan Mo, you are not talking about me. Nalan Mo didn't justify, he turned his head and narrowed his eyes to Su Fang, and his gaze was self-evident. Yan Ji ignored the confrontation between the two, and she bowed her head and ate the dishes on the table with interest. It tastes good, and Nalan Mo also clips 2 chopsticks. Su Fang looked really enthusiastic. He and the emperor grew up together. When he was a child, he was accompanied by the emperor. The relationship with the emperor was very close. The emperor did not like to deal with this Nalan Mo when he was young. Why so good to this guy now? I do not understand why such a hypocrite gentleman like Nalan Mo was favored by the emperor. Su Fang had no twists and turns, and he immediately expressed his dissatisfaction. Master, the vegetables in Nalan's saucer are all piled up into hills. I'm empty, you shit, this is a sharp contrast. Yanj didn't look back, this is your own dish. You probably eat too much and get tired of it. No, it's the eldest son who hasn't given me any vegetables. I feel bad. Yan Ji glanced at him, be cautious. Su Fang, no money and no dignity. Su Fang muttered in dissatisfaction, he doesn't know where the money came from. The words pretend not to hear. Nalan Mo also did not respond. Su Fang stunned and poured wine to Yanj and Nalan Mo. Yanj took a sip and watched the taste of the wine, so he raised his glass and said to Nalan Mo, be careful, you taste it too, it tastes good. The 2 words of Shen, shouted by her, were really overdone. Nalan Moban didn't think about holding the wine glass, but when he heard the words, he raised his glass and tasted it. It is true that he has lived in Beijing for a long time and he knows that the best known champion is not food, but wine. Su Fang waited for the 2 to finish drinking, and then said, this is the most famous sip of the champion, don't look at the bad name. The wine entrance is long and sweet. The main thing is that this wine only needs 1 drink. No matter how much alcohol you drink, you get drunk in 1 go. Yan Ji narrowed his eyes, and he looked like he was smiling. He stood up expressionlessly. The guards immediately stepped forward, and someone passed the song to Yan's song. Yanj didn't have time to give an order, probably because she got up too fast, and when she looked dark, she knew nothing. When I woke up again, it was in General's mansion. Su Fang kneeled in front of her bed, glaring at her, and when she woke up, she immediately called, Your Majesty, Chen really didn't know that you could get drunk in 1 bite without drinking. Chen has already drank you. Teng, this time it is wrong, please forgive your sin. As he said, he also tore his clothes and exposed his back to Yanj. Your Majesty, your grandmother has punished the minister. If you are not relieved, you will also cut a few knives on the court, and the court will use a knife and a whip. Bring it all, and let His Majesty dispose of it. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 655. Su Fang's voice was humming in the ears of Yan Ji, and Yan Ji reached out his hand and patted his face with a slap, I want to drink water. The emperor's hands are very tender, and there is not much strength on the hands. It is not painful or itchy, but anyway, the emperor beats himself, and he has to give a little face to it. Su Fangyu screamed pain, just about the first when she crouched down on the ground, she heard the words. He got up and poured a cup of tea for the song. The movements are extremely numb. Yanj drank the water and rubbed his forehead, where is this place? General's mansion. Su Fang said, Your Majesty hasn't been to General's mansion. Would you like to watch around? Yan Ji gave Su Fang a glance. This guy looked heartless, but he would fight for his own interests. Of course, Yanj didn't want to watch everywhere. Immediately, the palace should be closed. She met the old lady of the Su family and talked for a few words before returning to the palace. As I was on the road, I didn't forget to ask the guards around me, who was the one holding the stunner when he was drunk and unconscious. It is humble. Yan Ji nodded, and the guard hesitated and said, when your majesty is drunk, and when you stand up to help you, you suddenly take hold of the prime minister's and general's hands, and say, you want to sit and hold 3,000 beautiful men. The lower the guard's voice became, the lower his head looked, and the less he became a tortoise. Words of song. She doesn't look like someone who can do this kind of thing. The chick comforted her in a timely manner. Since becoming an emperor, men can come to 3,000 beauties, you can come to 3,000 beautiful men. This is fine, I support you, boldly. Nine Tails, miss, I can help you. Can you let me out? Okay. Your world is so big, there are beautiful men everywhere. I'll help you on a tour to find beautiful men. In less than a year, I can help you. Collect 3,000 beautiful men. Yanj doesn't want to ignore these two guys. In this plane, the host's song is very harsh on women. If the identity of the host woman is revealed, it is estimated that these courtiers will be disposed of by the demon girl for the country's crime. Before she has no absolute strength, the issue of women's identity must be firmly covered. On the second day of the dynasty, Yanj drafted the imperial decree of the Tao. General Zhenyi Su Fang loved horses and became mad, and sent him to raise horses in Xining. When this imperative erupted, the Chao dynasty was uproared, but no one spoke for Su Fang. This guy offended the entire Chao Tang people. Everyone even sighed with joy and gloat. Those guys who shouted for war every day finally got rounded and the world was peaceful. Su put down and didn't leave behind, but waited pitifully on the way of the word song. At the sight of Yanj, he immediately jumped up and hugged Yanj's thigh, and wept bitterly, Your Majesty, this time you go to Xining, you will not be able to return in the year of the monkey, but the civil and military forces of the Manchu dynasty will not be able to understand your minister. What do you do? The crying one called tears and snot flying together. Yan Ji frowned, and stared at the corner of the clothes he was holding. Su Fang immediately let go of Yanj's clothes and legs, wiping tears with his sleeve, and said to Yanj, Your Majesty, the court is not willing to leave you in this life, you have a concubine when you want to part with your Majesty, I can't wait to be killed on that crooked neck tree. He pointed to the pine tree aside, and pitifully chanted the words, Your Majesty, do you look down on the minister like this?